Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah Babbins, and in this episode, we sit down with Kayla Drescher. Now, Kayla's already been on an episode of the podcast, but this was a crossover episode because we wanted to do something different. You know, she runs the Shezam podcast, and we wanted to talk about some of the things that have been different in the world of virtual. We spoke about virtual magic, we spoke about podcasting and, Magic podcast, how that changed, and we spoke about virtual conventions. As some of you know, we've run 2 unconventional funds, and we have 3 more happening. That is a virtual magic convention that happens in a video game world. And Kayla is also running a virtual magic convention. And we decided to just chat about all of the different virtual things going on. So this was an awesome episode. You kind of got to hear a lot of behind the scenes. We spoke about some behind the scenes podcasting things, we spoke about behind the scenes magic things, virtual magic things. It was awesome. And I've been playing with having some of these more conversational style episodes instead of interview style episodes, or as well as interview style episodes. And I would love to know what you think. So here it is, a wonderful out of the box conversation with the one and only Kayla Drescher. Kayla Drescher, how are you, Kayla?
Hey, I'm doing well. Welcome to this crossover episode. It begins in 3, 2, 1. I don't know. I felt like I would get my intro in there.
I was thinking, why am I the one doing the intro?
That's great.
This is really exciting because there are so many fun overlaps. We're magic podcasters. We both, you're planning your first virtual magic convention. We've put on a few. We've got a few more. And I'm really, really excited about some of the amazing stuff that you're doing. So pumped to kind of talk right now about magic podcasting and virtual magic conventions. And one of the things I always joke about on other crossover or overlaps or whatever is I say, if you like listening to people talk about magic, if you're a fan of one of these podcasts and you like listening to people talk about it, you're probably going to like the other. And same thing, if you like a magic convention where you can meet people and watch sound, you're probably going to like the other one too. So really, really excited to share and chat. Why don't you kind of catch everyone up to speed, maybe if they don't know, and then I'll do the opposite. Tell us about the Shezam podcast and tell us about what you've been up to for the past year or so.
So for the past year, I have gotten really well acquainted with my couch and my dog and snacks. That's very much true, but there are a lot of other things going on. So Shezam is a podcast that was born out of my frustration with how I saw myself and other women in the magic industry being treated, and I just got really, really sick of it. So we started it, and by we, I mean Carissa Hendricks and myself. We began Shezam about 3 years ago. Carissa has since stepped down from the podcast, but I felt like the conversation just wasn't done, and we needed to keep it going. So big revamp over this past summer, which was kind of great because what else was going on? So I was able to really put in, I think before, because we were both touring professional magicians and very busy in great ways, a lot of things that I wish were different, we just weren't able to do. Sometimes we weren't able to get both of us to record at the same time. So a lot of episodes had to be just one of us in an interview. And it became, I think, just a bit frustrating. So what was great is that now that it's just me and my audio producer, Chris Combs, as well as, this time, been able to really revamp it. So what I realized over this past summer was that we've talked a lot about women, but there are a lot of intersectionalities with gender. There are a lot of issues that surround race, cultural appropriation, all of this stuff, that it became a little bit more rounded out in our topics this past season, where although I feel like the focus is very woman-centric, there are so many other things that need to be discussed. So we're also trying to figure out how can we, for season 4, really start to revamp that. And within magic and other performing industries as well, some of our allied arts industries, juggling, comedy, etc., there are just so many issues that aren't really getting a deep dive. And they deserve a deep dive because inclusivity and diversity and equity are very important. So we're right now the only podcast that focuses on these deep dives. I'm hoping that there will be more coming out, but we're the only one that does it. But also we're the only one that does it in a funny way. Like oftentimes it's lighthearted. It does dive into very serious and emotional and important conversations, but also we try to make it be fun in a lot of different ways. So, for example, in this past season, I did an entire segment called Historical Women, and I spotlighted for about 5 minutes each episode a really important woman in magic history. And there are so many that I had never heard of that really created what we understand magic to be today. Women have invented so much that are just it's just uncredited, and it's like, oh wow, that's really cool. So I got to learn a lot, and listeners got to learn a lot. And then all surrounding that, it's just been a lot of teaching magic, a lot of virtual performances, which I don't really care for, but it's something. And if as I was telling you before we started recording, if it lands in my inbox, I'm not going to say no, but I'm not trying to push it. But yeah, just sort of trying to figure out what has been missing from me as a performer, me as a person, and I have a lot of time to figure that out. So it's been a really, although very hard year for obvious reasons, it's still been really awesome because I got to focus on some really cool things. How about you?
First of all, awesome. There's so many things I want to talk about there. So, hard to not unpack some of those, but, I guess I'll just quickly say virtual was, I just quickly decided I was stuck here in my house with Ben, and I could either hang out with him or we could do virtual magic shows. So we decided on virtual magic shows, but really, no, we were stuck. We had some clients that were asking us, and we just said there was kind of a turning point. I remember a conversation with Ben and I where it was like, we have two options. We can hold our breath and take whatever government assistance comes for Canadians, who knows what's happening, whatever, or we can work our absolute butts off. Those are basically the two options, right? There's no it's not going to be like a half vacation, because we're either going to take a rest, and do as little as we can to take a little, government mandated vacation, or we're going to do our best. And we decided to just go have fun, go crazy, and it ended up being really fun. We have a lot of fun with virtual. We had a lot of fun with the conventions. And for me personally, pre-COVID, I guess I was doing a lot with the podcast, helping magicians trying to get into magic, get into professional magic. But I was trying to do more courses and more books and stuff. And the problem was that people are unique and there's different things going on. So because of COVID, because my calendar was kind of wiped clear, I started doing coaching, which meant that I could actually listen to the problems that people were having and serve them. And what ended up happening is both for myself, it felt better than sending out information into the world and going, oh, okay, maybe somebody was helped, to literally actually help a person. And for somebody, I could literally see that the impact that it's being made in the transition, and I can see the roadblocks people are having and pushing through them together. So that ended up being a real unlock for me from trying to be hey, buy this book, which I spend 7 months writing a book nobody cares about, so instead I'm just instead of me trying to peddle products, hey, I can legitimately help people. There's only a limited number of people I can help at a time. And it's just been really rewarding for me, and just the change of medium because of the opening in time that happened at the beginning. The change in medium really ended up being positive. So between virtual gigs, Ben and I are keeping very busy, the convention, and we're doing a lot of virtual ticketed shows because we love them. So we've got one that we're about to launch, which is a late night magic show with Ben and I as weird, silly hosts. And the coaching, it's just been packed. It's been super fun, minus all of the obvious things that I ridiculously miss from the real world, minus all of that. So it's been wild. It's been crazy. It's crazy to believe it's a year now.
So in your coaching for people, is that mainly business related, or are you also helping on the more director side as well?
The short answer is it's just the business related. The long answer is I have the qualifications to help people directing with their show, in the sense of Ben and I did host an open mic night here for 4 years. And after people did their acts, we would just break down their acts with them every week, for 4 years, as well as our own acts, as well as, so like when I take time inside of my coaching to help people with their performing, it's wonderful. It's lovely, but that's not the thing that I help people solve. Like I can certainly see some of the elephants in the room sometimes, especially when it pertains to selling. Like, hey, red flag, what you're selling right now doesn't look like it's, maybe you need to offer something different or do something different, or what it is, the actual magic you're doing may have to be different because this doesn't look visually appealing. But I don't go too deep into the actual magic itself. There have been people that are like, you should. Maybe one day I will add that, but right now I'm mostly focused on helping people get started and get into it. It's honestly not terribly difficult to get started in being hired for in-person gigs or virtual gigs, depending on when you're listening to this. Like, it's not that hard to get started. And, and people all have the exact same mistakes, right? The exact same roadblocks over and over again. And then same thing to get from getting started to growing and scaling your business. People again have the exact same roadblocks, right? So just being able to help people through those, see those roadblocks, use it for myself, do it on others. That's what it's been about. It's just focusing on helping people with the sales, the systems, and the marketing.
So we have a lot of Shezam listeners that are not currently professionals, but have expressed interest in turning pro. A lot of those tend to be women who are above the age of 18. And there are a lot of women in magic, like Suzanne is a great example of someone who began her magic career in her 20s. What is starting kind of at the very beginning, but what's one piece of advice you would give someone like that who is in their mid 20s, maybe early 30s, that's like, I think I want to go pro? What would be your biggest piece of advice?
So I'm going to give you a piece of advice that I gave to, and I don't want to say her name in case she doesn't want me to, but another female magician who's getting started in magic. And I told her, I said, one of the biggest advantages that we have when we have no connections, no relationships, no past clients, the thing that we need to find is we need to draw on our uncommon commonalities. What are uncommon commonalities? Those are the things that we have in common with other people that not a lot of other people on the planet have, right? And when you reach out to those people, they tend to speak up. Like, I could email any magic podcaster and say, hi, I'm also a magician podcaster. How many of us are there? Right? How many of us on the planet even exist? So banking on our uncommon commonalities to build relationships and to start getting the ball rolling is the best thing to do. So I'll give you the piece of advice that I gave to one of the girls that I coached, and she did an incredible job with it. She is a female Asian American entrepreneur. So I said, go type into Google female Asian American entrepreneurs. Go find 30 of them. Or 50 of them, and send them a message and say, hey, I found your story on this website. I read about the fact that you did XYZ, and it's super interesting to me. I'm a virtual magician, and I'm also starting on my entrepreneurial journey. Just wanted to say, hey, I promise, if you send out 50 hellos to people with an uncommon commonality with you, whatever that is, and really think about what that could be for you and dig deep. And I just, that's the one that came to mind right now, but it could be in your neighborhood. It could be, hey, my dad's a dentist. It could be, there's a million different things that it could be, but figure out what the uncommon commonality is. Go connect with 10, 20, 30, 50 people, say hello. They will just offer you business. There's an old adage that says, if you ask for advice, they'll give you a job. And if you ask for a job, they'll give you advice. So go ask for advice. They'll give you a job. I promise.
That's great. I love that a lot. It's very similar to what I normally say, which is I love my entire business has basically been built off of word of mouth. And I do not a lot of marketing. I hate cold calls, so I'm not going to do them. So I just hardcore go, oh, they're just the worst. I mean, they're just soul sucking. So I go word of mouth. And so every time someone's like, how do I start? And you go, you had a job once, did you not? Like, you work for a company, you worked somewhere, you have friends. Tell them that you want to perform a show for them. Especially,
and this is one of the reasons why I am beyond excited about virtual, but especially about virtual, everyone either them their significant other, their parent, or their cousin is working at a company who had a really bad happy hour.
Yes.
And their CEO is like, what on earth do I do? Greg from accounting's son poured milk on his lap 5 times during this pandemic. He doesn't want to work here anymore. I want to put on something fun for them. Everybody you know, either them, their significant other, their parent, or their kid, or their cousin works at a place that could use your help. And that wasn't as true in in-person bookings. Like in in-person bookings, I could walk around all night at an event, give out business cards to a whole bunch of people that have no business hiring a magician, and they never will ever hire a magician. And I might as well just flush them down the toilet versus everybody you know works at a company. They're working from home and their company is dying to figure out what sort of activities they can put on for the people that are there. So to me, I think even more than what you just said, like just go through your Facebook contacts. Go through your contacts. Yeah. I did something with one of my early coaching groups. This was so fun. I got somebody, I told them what I was going to do. I said, you pick a letter of the alphabet. I'm going to go to my friends on Facebook in that letter. You pick a person, and I am going to send that person a message to start a conversation about what I do. And they did it. They combed through my friends. They picked a person. I said, I haven't spoken to him in 7 years. We went to university together, and I sent them a message, and they didn't come to the show. But 3 other people that I sent messages to, 2 of them did, and one of them booked me for a corporate event, right?
There you go.
But that's basically the idea is you've got connections, and your connections is your way in, and that's the way to do it. Go reach out, go say hello, tell them about what you're doing. The question I ask is, how many people know that you do this? How many people know that you put on virtual magic shows?
Yep.
Is it you and that's it?
Yes.
Because it'll be tough to get hired that way, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I love that so much. I think it's the idea of just connecting with someone, and I'm sure this is something that everyone has heard at this point, but your friends want to hire you. Your client doesn't necessarily want to hire you because they can hire anybody. It's going to be a budget thing. What's your price? Can you do it? Are you available? Okay, great. Your friends will work extra hard for you. I have one client that I've done kind of on and off because of touring and everything, but on and off for the last 8 years. Mm-hmm. And she's lovely, but we catch up during the year for funsies. And because of that,
that's it. That's what relationship building is. That's
exactly. And and she's great. I'm not just doing this for like getting a booking, but I know she's going to call me every November to give me this booking. But also I want to be her friend, and she's great. And because we're friends, she hires her friend, which is awesome. And if I'm not available, I call my friend, and then I get a cut because I booked that for them. Boom, done. So this is great.
Let me use the opportunity to even tell you what not to do. Okay. Because I think there's a real scary one that people do, and I want to warn you what not to do. Okay. I just advocated for you to go reach out to, everyone. Like if I was to get serious, I would say like 100 people, but like, let's say 100 people. Okay. So I want you to go reach out to 100 people in your contact list that may possibly be interested in this. I want to tell you the way to not do it. The way to not do it is to send them a link or to send them a blurb with a link. I promise you, as somebody who got, and I'm sure you're the same, right? Like who got legitimate famous people on a podcast, and like it is impossible that the way to get somebody to do something is to blindly get them to follow every step of a process completely and entirely on their own. Completely and entirely on their own. So do you send a message and say, hey, I'm putting on a virtual show on Thursday. Click here to buy tickets. I'd love to see you there. No way, shape, or form. Zero chance. Do not send that message. Do not send that message. Don't. Instead, you say, hey, Sam, how are you? Mind blown. Wow. Or, hey, Sam, I have an exciting project. Can I tell you about it? Wow. There's something called permission-based sales, which is that I don't tell you anything until you've told me, yeah, please tell me that, right? You know, so I say, hey, I'm doing this exciting event. Can I tell you about it? No, I'm not interested in your events. No problem. Amazing. Great. Not even a worry, right? And you don't feel like you're spamming people. So don't spam your friends. Go start 100 conversations.
Also adding into that, I like your, hey, how are you? Can I tell you about this? One of my biggest pet peeves about interactions online, especially over Facebook Messenger, are the copy and pastes. So even if it's like, hey, how are you? And then I say, I'm well. And then they say, hey, I have a cool project. Can I tell you about it? Yeah, sure. What's going on? And then it's just a clear spam. I'm done. That's it. I don't care anymore.
Look, we are right now in 2021, we are so hyper aware and hypersensitive to ads. Like anybody grew up on the internet to weird ads and weird things. We are so hyper aware. We know when we're listening to like our favorite podcasts start talking, we're like, this is an ad. He's talking about this. This is an ad. We know instinctually when something is promotion and when something isn't. So if you're about to send a message and it feels like it's probably promotion spammy sounding, it is. The biggest differences that I made in all of my businesses is to say this: transactions happen because of conversations. So instead of me trying to maximize transactions, I'm trying to maximize conversations. And that you're adding an extra step to all of your processes, your sale. And you can think about this in terms of booking gigs as well and anything, right? The gig happens because of the conversation. So instead of trying to maximize for how many bookings you can get, you just maximize for the number of conversations you can have, and everything else will work itself out.
I love, one of the things that I love doing is, and it's very much what you just said about permission-based sales, but I'm a big fan of consent in more ways than one. But in business speaking, if someone says, so what's been going on? And I say, oh, I've been really busy. I'm doing all these shows and it's been really great. I love them. Yeah, sure. And then I go, oh yeah, and I'm producing a convention online. That's been really fun to plan. And then if they don't care about it, they go, that's cool. And then I leave it because I know that they don't care about it. Most people go, a convention? Explain. And then I do. And by the end of that day, they've registered. And it's like, whoa, that's cool. And that's not for everybody. Obviously, that's not everyone wants to hear about it. But for the people that do, they've been registering or they've been subscribing to the podcast channel or whatever it happens to be, is like, oh yeah, because they asked. Because they asked, I didn't shove it down their throats. Yeah. Boom, we win.
People's your favorite idea is your own. So if somebody feels like something is their own idea, then they are more interested in it. They are more, open to it. And like, we know that stuff happens all the time, in our lives in many different ways. So I love that. Awesome conversation. And the last thing I'll say about the idea of, if you're just getting started right now, if you're listening to this while it's still virtual, which I think you should be, put on a ticketed virtual magic show, please. It's fun. It's awesome. Pick any price. If you're worried about the price that you picked, which I think, just don't make it zero. Just pick a price. I don't care. If you're worried about the price that you picked, give every single person a 100% full money back guarantee, even after the event, for the rest of time. We've just eliminated all the risk for everybody. You no longer have to be worried. If anybody felt like it wasn't worth it, they will get a refund for the rest of time. No questions asked. You can just stamp that right on it and go put on your first ticket event. It's fun. You get to put on a virtual show. You get the support of your family and friends. They get to see what you're up to. You get to perform. It's amazing. You'll never have an opportunity like this again. It's going to be really expensive to four-wall a real theater. Do this. While virtual is where it is right now, if you're listening to this and you've been interested in getting started, this is the easiest thing you can do on the planet. Just do this, do this, do this. I hope that's a helpful thing if somebody is interested in getting started, especially in virtual right now, because I love it. Let's talk about magic podcasting. This is a weird place. And I think one thing that you and I differ in the world of magic podcasting is that I am a scaredy cat. I do not bring somebody on the podcast to be like, I disagree with you. No way. That is not, and I'm not referring to anything specific, but I'm saying that like, well, I am, but I'm saying like, you're doing hardcore journalism and I am letting people voice their opinions. And every now and again, and I'll give some behind the scenes for people listening. Every now and again, it doesn't happen often, but every now and again, I will get off an episode and I will say to myself or whoever else is in a room with me or whatever, wow, that person sure put their foot in their mouth, right? Like, it happens. I mean, maybe 1 in 50 episodes, right? Like, it doesn't happen often, but certainly I don't ask them about it when they put their foot in their mouth. Like certainly I say, okay, I'm gonna just gloss over that, like misstep and I don't necessarily put people on blast for what's going on. And I call myself a chicken, for doing that, because the reality is people have said to me, they're like, you just you don't actually challenge anybody versus you're doing journalism. So you're disagreeing with people, you're asking people hard questions, like hopefully trying to, maybe not necessarily catch someone off guard, but maybe get the truth or, so talk to me a little bit about that. Like, you're not just letting people talk about whatever they want. You're kind of getting to the bottom of things.
Thanks. I've been recently called more of a journalist than I ever intended. So it's a little bit weird to hear that because I'm not sure I see myself in that light yet. But I think it's something that the podcast has always sort of been working towards. I remember we did an episode very early on about a magician named Andy Gross, and a hashtag was going on. It was Andy Gross's Gross. And we tried to figure out what was going on, and we invited him on and he did not respond. But he had done some really terrible things at a college show and they were very creepy and crossed a lot of lines and made a lot of college kids uncomfortable. And so that was our first episode where we were like, we're going to call this person out. We did invite him on and he has had the chance to come on and express his experience and hear our perspective and have a conversation. And then from there, that was a pretty regular thing, as we would get sent videos of magicians who were just really crossing a lot of lines, especially with women. And we would always invite them on before we talked about them. And that's just kind of been a rule that I've kept even into this past summer, where if I'm gonna talk badly about someone, and by badly, we don't talk drama.
But critically.
Critically.
Yeah,
we're dissecting their decisions for the purpose of education and betterment. And if that's going to happen, I want them to come on the podcast. I want them to have the opportunity to have a conversation, and then we go from there. And it just so happened that was for the first time in 3 years that happened, where someone said yes. And so that was the first time that I ever went, I think I need to prepare to be like a weird journalist.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I hated how I handled that podcast, but it went very well in a lot of ways where
You're talking about that college performer?
No, I'm talking about Jabrizi.
Okay.
So,
you're referring to the Jabrizi episode.
Yes. Sorry, I should have said. So Jabrizi came on to discuss an effect he put out, but then also some language he used online. And we had a conversation about it on the podcast. And I did not like my performance in this podcast, if you will, but I learned a lot there. So I'm excited to if that ever happens, if I ever have that opportunity again to talk with someone, that'd be great. But yeah.
That episode was one of the craziest things I've ever heard in my entire life. That episode was one of the craziest things I have ever heard in my entire life. And we listened to it head in hands, a group of us listened to it head in hands, and it was unbelievable. And I guess just to give some context, I don't know how to talk about it, but
I'm very happy to give a bit of context about what the episode was about. So basically an effect went out by Abstract Effects that, in my opinion, was very much a glorification of sexual assault of a woman, because in the video, and Jabrizi was demoing the trick, in the video, the woman that's a part of this, it was very much her idea to do this, but that's not reality. And so in my opinion, because this is how this was being taught, it was like, hey, magician who is a man, you need to reach into the back pockets of women. I'm going to say you need to ask permission, but it's so I don't get in trouble. Okay, moving on. And so I had a lot of issues with how that was handled. It was very uncomfortable. I get that she in the video was absolutely fine with it, but outside of that, for the people who are performing this, I had a lot of issues with it. And then, of course, a lot of people, because a lot of people don't like Jabrizi. I will not comment on the quality of videos or who he is as a person. I don't know enough to have a real opinion. So, and that wasn't my issue. I don't care if you have a problem with like the video quality of what he puts out. That's not where I'm going from my podcast. I was focused on this. And a lot of people started calling him out on their YouTube channels and everything without actually talking to him. And then because of that, he then gets in the comments of YouTube videos and he starts using anti-LGBTQIA plus slurs. And I'm going, okay. And then he also used the R word. And so it was a lot of that. It was a lot of like, okay, so we need to have a conversation. So I invited him on. He said, yes, we recorded it. Unbeknownst to me, he planned a troll. And he planned to troll me with what, right? And I later found this out from him. So you can listen to the episode. It happened. Great.
Just to give context for somebody that didn't listen to it, he basically was given every opportunity in the world to not take back what he said, but apologize for what he said. And he doubled, tripled, quadrupled down in ways that were clearly meant to be either a troll or ridiculous, but just to instigate, like he basically quadrupled down on nonsense. And he had every opportunity to say, now that I've learned what I learned, I should not have done that, which is such a simple thing to do. And like,
And what was really interesting is up until that point, I don't think there was never an opportunity for him to actually learn anything. And what happened was a lot of stuff happened behind the scenes in his corner. And then he and I opened up a conversation privately. And that's when I started learning, like, he is very remorseful. Does he deserve forgiveness, especially from folks who identify as LGBTQ plus community? No, that is a person by person basis. And I'm not going to tell anybody what to feel, but I was really impressed with the amount of work he did to educate himself in the following months.
But I don't even like, can you explain to me the context of the trolling? Like, did he tell you afterwards? Like, did he publicly tell it? Like, what happened? Like, what a crazy, like F you that he gave to you and everyone. And you gave him a silver platter to even just learn, and he threw it in everyone in your face. What happened afterwards? He said jokes. Like, what happened? Like,
so afterwards, when the podcast ends, I hung up. So we did not talk after that episode. It aired a couple days later. I wrestled with putting it out, but decided to do so. And I'm really glad that I did, because he just got kicked in the teeth. Business friends were calling him crying. Like, it was not a positive experience for him, which was good. And that's when he reached out and was like, yep, I planned to troll you because I did not know the impact of that word. And so I messed up. And honestly, in talking to him, I 100% think he now understands. He has educated himself. He's talked to people I know, he's gone to centers to talk to folks and get educated on the history of certain languages and anti-LGBTQ slurs. And I was really impressed with the amount of work he did. I just want people to know that I truly believe he improved from that experience. And again, you can love him or hate him, whatever your opinion is of what he puts out into the world. But that particular experience, I was so, and this is going to sound weird, I was very proud of him, because he actually worked his ass off. He was donating money. He was reading, but oh my gosh, I was just so impressed by him taking such a crappy action of his own accord and improving upon it. So there are moments like that in our podcast that I wish happened more often. He just happened to be the only person that was willing to have an actual conversation.
I mean, it's true. He was willing to have a conversation. Unbeknownst to you, it was to set you up,
Yes. After the episode aired, that's when we started having really good conversations. And yeah, I mean, again, I think
it's nice awesome to know that he's remorseful. Mm-hmm. I'm glad to know that he's remorseful. It was a an embarrassing display that is really, 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 really going to be hard to fix. And certainly what he did privately and told you privately is not enough for to have me to want him to be on my convention or podcast or panel, like that's not happening anytime, like he's lost that opportunity. Not that I'm any amazing person that you would want to be a part of any of my things, but just like, no amount of like, I'm so glad he read books and donated money. Yeah. And I'm really glad. And also, like, you really did have the chance. Like there was the chance, like,
so 100%. I don't think anyone is obligated to forgive him or to give him a chance right now or anything. I just also want people to know that from my perspective, I was really impressed. Right. And I don't want people leaving that going, well, he's
Kayla
never going to
forgive
change
him or something. Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't want people saying he's never going to change because he did. And that's what I think is really important for people to know. And I posted on our Shezam social media his apology video, which came months later because he needed to work first before issuing an apology. And it was terrible. What a terrible situation. But I was really impressed with how much he has improved since that moment.
Mayhem. And thank you for taking what a crazy situation where everybody was, very easy to hide behind keyboards on the internet for every human being. I'm not talking about anybody. And just thank you for kind of uncovering it and saying, let's talk about this, no matter how messy that was. And boy, was that messy. Yeah. Was that messy.
I genuinely don't understand passive aggressiveness. And I don't think anything can change if you are happy to just make a video talking to your followers, but really you're not talking to anybody. It's your side of the story. And nothing can change. Jabrizi didn't change from people making videos about him. And that's my opinion. Other people that's totally fine. For me, I'm not going to do that. I want to have a conversation because the whole point of the podcast is to make a difference. We say in the beginning of the podcast, we want to be obsolete. And it's true. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. I'm angry all the time. Like I don't want to do this anymore. I want people to be self-sufficient. And so because the self-sufficiency is so far away, I need to do things like this to really spark that change. And that's what I think happened with him. And that's why I'm really impressed with like, whoa, he worked hard. But yeah, I think it's really important that we have conversations where you can actually chat and see the other person and listen to them and present your arguments, which is why I do that a lot in episodes where I say, okay, but what about this thing? Because what you're saying makes a lot of sense for over here, but not for anyone else. Walk me through that. And I think that's how you learn. I don't think how you learn is just by type on the computer, because then it's really easy to get defensive.
Yeah. Well, it's not only awesome to see that kind of thing inside of Magic, but it's just awesome to see that kind of thing happening anywhere in the world. That stuff isn't really happening in many places. So really wicked to see. Given that you've probably had, whether you've spoken about them or had them thrust upon you, every single magical social justice issue has probably crossed your desk, in the last, let's say, 12 months. What has been that one, let's call it the biggest catastrophe. Which one was maybe something that you think is the most important that hasn't been spoken about, or maybe that has been and didn't get the light that it even needed? What's the social justice mistake going on in Magic? Obviously there's unlimited, right? We can talk about but what's the one that's really stuck out for you in the last 12 months that we can talk about?
Yeah, I mean, the last 12 months has been great because so many spotlights have opened up everywhere in the world. And I think that's great because hopefully we can come back out of this, and when we can see each other again, it's a more inclusive place to be, especially in Magic when we're a whole bunch of weird antisocial nerds. We should have an inclusive community and we just don't. And we had a couple panel discussions to end Shazam, and one was a panel with various Black African American magicians, and another one was a bunch of women who are juggling, and then one was with various magicians of Asian descent. And I think one aspect of magic that really needs to be improved upon is the cultural appropriation of Asian cultures. It's something that people don't understand, and I'm still wrestling with the best way to explain something, and I hear a lot of great ways of explaining it, but then someone will go, okay, but what about this? And one of those issues is like the William Robinson versus Ching-Ling Fu, was that wrong? And like the Chung-Ling Soo situation, and it's like, okay, well, we could debate forever and educate ourselves forever on the history and read the books and all of this, talk to the historians and learn context. But really the problem exists today, where there is still a celebration of this. And I'm going to say a term, I think it's a terrible term, but it's the best thing I can explain because we use it all the time, is the mysticism of the Orient. It's the Chinese coins. It's the Chinese laundry ticket, the torn and restored Chinese laundry ticket. There are still people doing portrayals of East Asian folks and folks of Asian descent. And it's so frustrating because we, for some reason, just accept it as okay, which I don't understand. And I have seen many people drop the Chinese coin recently, which has been awesome, but it's still a hugely marketed product where, and I'm going to quote one of the panelists in the episode we had, Ed Kwan, where Ed Kwan said, it's just a piece of shiny, colorful plastic that says in an artist's renditioning of a language, it says fish market. Okay, well, you didn't get that on your trip to China. And they're pretty colors, and they're clearly a caricature of a culture. And it's so frustrating to see that still be like effects are marketed on every
so I mean, that's the
thing. So
what I was going to say is like, I think about the individual magician, and then I think about where it comes from. And it still comes from the dealers and the sites and the whatever that things are even called these things. Like I think about a magic shop walking in and there being like, like Chinese symbols that are just slapped on things that I'm sure do not mean anything, like, or at least anything that is relevant to what it's about, or maybe they do, or I don't know, like, and I certainly don't know how people are using it in their presentation. So, I mean,
there's also, and I should be very clear, is that there's a huge difference between cultural appropriation and cultural exchange. And you can 100% perform something that is an exchange of culture, which means you can articulate your experience and knowledge of a culture. If you have been, so like a great example is Max Maven. Max Maven speaks Japanese. He's gone to various Asian countries hundreds of times. He understands every fiber of various cultures. So if he's going to do a routine about being in Japan, that's a cultural exchange because he knows what he's talking about. But there are other magicians who say, I traveled to Japan and let me tell you about what Japanese culture is like. And then they present things that are not Japanese. They're just from the magic shop. Mm-hmm. And that's where you're like, okay, that's an issue. That is a caricature. That's just a joke. It's just an easy, you don't have to work for it.
Let me ask you a question about a lot of this stuff. And this may be kind of a weird overarching question, but a lot of the times when I think about, let's say, American politics, one thing that I say to myself to allow myself to sleep at night is that many of the people that have views that blow my mind, they are old and they are white and they are going to die. And I know I'm being a little bit blunt here, but I'm just trying to say, like, the generation of leaders who led through these kind of decisions are not going to be with us for that much longer. And similarly, I can see in magic communities, maybe older gentlemen who don't understand certain updated things that you should and should not do, they are moving on from their leadership positions. So do we think that a lot of this stuff is just going to kind of go away on its own? Not on its own, like we still have to talk about it. We still have to, but I think that like, I don't see a lot of people my age referring to their mystic Oriental trips, but I do, that is something that I see in the older generation, and I don't see. I mean, similarly, like I'm thinking about things that were going on at the Magic Castle that people were reporting, like that's not something that's happening with 20-something-year-olds or 30-something-year-olds. And maybe I'm wrong, but like part of my question about this is, do we think that maybe all of Magic graduating from being an old man society is going to really help this cause? Or do we think that like there's a lot of messiness going on elsewhere too?
It's something that I've definitely said before, where it's like, all right, you know what, that person is just knocking on death's door and has brought a basket of muffins and like they're just ready, and that's fine. They're gonna go. So like there's no point in trying to sit down and educate them. I have kind of two things. One, a very good friend of mine who is just over 70 years old recently found out that calling women sweetheart and honey is not accepted in today's culture amongst college-age students. And he got some complaints, and he had to very quickly learn how to take a vocabulary word out of his vernacular that he's been using his entire life, and no one's ever told him any different. And he did. So one, I learned from that experience that, okay, you can teach an old dog new tricks and it's worth it. I think there's a lot of hope in saying, you know what, that generation is just going to die off. And you're right, is that probably there's a generation.
And I know that sounds brutal.
Yeah.
And somebody's listening to this and they're old and white. Like, I hope you don't die. I hope you live forever, unless you're racist and evil, in which case I hope,
just get your ass handed.
Yeah, I don't hope, exactly. I don't hope anybody dies. I hope everybody lives, but I'm just, at the very least, the leadership positions will shift, and new, younger, more informed leaders will step in, and these things will start to cease to exist.
Yeah, maybe the better way of saying this is like, okay, so the generation that has been absolutely fine with a lot of things is going to retire. And whatever retire means to them means that they're no longer in a position of power, just like you said. The one argument I would make is, I think younger people, so 50 and under, everything's moving very fast. So a lot of people have a lot of trouble still changing language. And like, it's only in the last few years has it been widely accepted that gender is not binary. And there's like a lot of that. Right. I would say, I actually think people that are 50 and younger have different issues. They're not as outright saying, my trip to the Orient and let me do yellow face. They're not really doing that, but they are doing more microaggression based actions. So there are still, I have a couple friends that are in their mid 30s that are still very happy to use Chinese coins and explain how on their trip to China they bought these. And it's not as deep as, putting on a terrible accent or making a comment about someone's race, but it is still very microaggression-y, where you are portraying a culture that is inaccurate. So I would say that younger generation, like, it would be nice to say it'd be great when that person retires, because then they're no longer in a position of power or influence. But I actually think that younger generations have issues that are equally as powerful. They're just not as easy to spot.
Right. And I love the way you said that about not as easy to spot, as I think when somebody from an older generation doesn't notice something that's going on right now that's happening so fast, like you said, it's like obvious to more people, than it is when something subtle happens with somebody younger. But another example is also just like the representation of not white cisgendered men in Magic resources. So that is product, that is podcasts, that is conventions, and I would say that there are a lot of podcast conventions companies that are currently run by someone that's under the age of 50. And as someone who has done a deep dive into the statistical analysis of Magic resources and knows too much, I would say that's a really big issue.
because the representation of women in podcasts is under 5%. The representation of women in a lot of magic resources is under 2%. So I would say that like, even so, it's not as blatant. It's not as just right in your face. And right now, I think it's being overshadowed by an older generation that is right in your face. But when that older generation retires, now we have these issues. So
all the stories that I hear are about that old man who, and that old man who, and that old man who, and part of me just thinks like eventually they will retire. But I think what you said is true, which is yes, on one hand that is true, but on the other hand, like that doesn't really mean that we should stop the education. It doesn't mean we should highlight important issues. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep talking about this stuff. So I love that.
Yeah, for sure. Magic podcasting though, because we kind of got, we started talking about it. We got off of topic because you self-identify as a scaredy cat, which I don't think that's true necessarily, but also our podcasts have different goals. So, and that's absolutely fine. But what do you feel like lacks currently in the Magic podcast world? What do you think would be a really great podcast for someone to start where they could talk about something that just hasn't yet been talked about? Magic business, perhaps? Just kidding.
No, there's enough of those. One of my favorite things to do in Magic is to borrow things from other industries, right? And there's unlimited brilliant podcasts in other industries, from Q&As to bite-sized learning, so you learn something one bit at a time, to different spotlight style things, so is there something that I think needs to exist in the world of Magic podcasting? Probably not another interview show. But I mean it like I was very happy with Ben Earl's podcast because he made something completely different and having deep conversations about magic theory, and it was very powerful and it was really strong. And that was something that didn't exist. And I think that maybe to put what I was saying a second ago more succinctly, I think people need to be more creative. Like, I think every single Magic podcast is most likely an interview show. And not that they shouldn't be. You should interview people. Interviewing people is wonderful. I interview people. If you want to interview people, you should. But there is now multiple interviews with every famous magician that you know, right? And I struggle with that. When I interviewed Tamariz, I struggled because I said, this guy's published so many books. Everyone knows everything. What am I going to ask him to explain his most basic theories to me? Like, what is the point of that? So it had to be a conversation that assumes everybody already knows, all of his material. And similarly with other people, when I had whoever on, if they are well known enough, I am like, how on earth do I ask them something where they don't tell that same story they've told so many times? Because we know how they got into Magic. We know how that we know. So I think there's something that really needs to exist in Magic? Nothing on the tip of in Magic podcast, nothing on the tip of my tongue. But I think that just like people get creative with Magic on YouTube, there's still a giant, like, I celebrate everybody who launches a Magic podcast. I'm excited about it. The more, the merrier. I think it's amazing. I just think whatever floats your boat, whatever excites you, do deck reviews, do move reviews, talk about different styles of Magic. One thing, by the way, is what I'll call deep journalism. You do deep journalism, but I wonder what it would look like if it was like, hey, this is what it looked like 100 years, this is what it looked like 50 years, this is what it looked like. We spoke to this person, we spoke to that person, like a documentary to get to the bottom of something, like, as an example, the story of how here's a really funny one that the Jerks mentioned that is great. Somebody finding any of those people from L&L Studios, like, all those people in the audience, like, to find and interview all those people, like, that kind of journalism, that would be amazing. To hear about, Illusionist as a company, unless I'm mistaken, launched because they bought commercial ad space on TV on David Blaine's special. So people went, holy crap, I can learn how to do this stuff. Stories like that are lost to Magic. And I think that for me, the most exciting piece of Magic style journalism would be to figure out, like, how did we get to where we are now with respect to, like, how is restaurant magic what it is right now? Chicago plays a role in it, and then I don't know, right? So a lot of things like that, I would be really curious to have a deeper dive into, a piece of journalism like, what is the best we know right now about Erd Ace? Like at this moment, 2021, what's the best we can do? Who brought us that information? Like there's a lot of questions like that, which I think require a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of research. And that's why it doesn't exist right now, because it's a lot of work to do that stuff and a small group of people who will appreciate it.
Yeah, right. And yeah, I was just thinking like, all right, what's the budget for
It's
that?
impossible.
And then how much money could you make? Oh yeah, okay. It's a labor of love and not a business. But I love that idea so much. I would love to see, and a friend of mine actually had that idea as well, is to do like a where are they now with everyone in the audience of LNL.
But I think about like an NPR style thing where it takes a month to be able to record it, because you have to go ask this person, you have to find that person, and hearing something play out like that would be very interesting. Regathering all of the people that advised on Chris Angel Mind Freak and hearing about what creating or David Blaine's, first special, and figuring out what that was like, everyone feeling like they were on the forefronts, or maybe they didn't. Maybe they felt like they were doing something, I don't know, like that. Oh man, that would be crazy. Like, but it's stuff that takes a lot of work, take a lot of heavy lifting, but boy, would it be cool.
Yeah, but that's such a great idea. I love it.
Let's talk about virtual magic conventions. So unconventional.fun, we did 2 of them. We announced 3 more, which is really exciting, in our unconventional pass. And it's been a ton of fun. Our conventions are similar. They both have lectures, they both have performances, and they both have a virtual world that you can kind of mingle around. And they're built on different platforms, which is really, really, really cool. So unconventional.fun, it's been super fun. We've had, we had David Williamson, we had Aussie Wind, we had Suzanne, we just brought on like everybody, Michael Feldman, we brought all of our friends, all the best people we could. We had a wonderful, awesome convention. We were going to not do it again. Like we were, well, because it was a lot of fun and it was not profitable. It was just not profitable. Yes. And we just said, wow, that was fun. That was awesome. No thanks. And then it seemed like people were like, maybe you should do it. And we said, okay, one last hurrah. And what happened on the second one is it still wasn't profitable. I mean, it made a little bit more money because we didn't ship books and lose all of them in the mail. But what ended up happening is we felt the support. We had so many people throughout the day, after the day, finding us in the virtual world to thank us, getting emails, getting to say that like we needed this, our pandemic, we've been missing this, like all of that. And we just said, you know what? It's fun for us. It's easy for us. We put on a lot of ticketed events before, like it's easy for us. Like if it just is the same that it always is and it doesn't ever make any more money, like who cares? Like it's a really, really fun virtual event. And who knows what the future holds for virtual, but we figured at the very least for the next 8 or 9 months, we can do 3 more of these. And a lot of people said to us, hey, we would rather this than a real convention because it was cheaper. We didn't have to leave our house. We didn't have to all this different stuff. And people from all over the world, people who couldn't afford, driving or flying and paying for a physical convention. There was so many reasons why we just said, this may be the convention of the future. And we loved it. People loved it. We want to keep helping people have this experience. Great. So we just said, to heck with it. We're doing 3 more. Who cares if they work or don't, and we just put up a page. We told people, hey, there's 3 more. We'll announce them all individually when they come. But if you want to be a part of them all, we'd love to have you all. So that's what's going on with us. We're about a week away from announcing the lineup of our next convention, which is happening the last week of May.
That's so exciting.
That's kind of what we have planned. We're going to keep doing them, keep sharing them with the world, and it's been a ton of fun. Tell me about yours. You're on a new platform, and you've got some wonderful... So mine's called Unconventional.Fun, and yours is called the Online Wonder Gala. Is that right?
You got it.
Nailed it. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so the Online Wonder Gala... a friend of mine had pointed out just some like things that magic conventions have been lacking. And it's something that I also noticed. And this isn't like a generalization for all magic conventions. It just so happened that it was like, oh yeah, that's a good overall general observation. And it's really funny because I believe we were both brought to the jam platform world by the same person, Felice Ling. And I saw that the world you guys used, which I had not known of. And I was like, oh, we got to find something similar, but more us. And after a long time of research, we landed on this one place called Topia. So it was kind of created as like a Burning Man, like a virtual Burning Man. Cool. And so your person is very like a bubble, and it's very just a very like chill environment. So it's really cool. And then I went to your convention and was like, oh, this is the exact idea. So I say that because I want you to know I didn't steal it. I promise.
Hakuna Matata.
Huzzah. But yes, anyway, so ours is the Online Wonder Gala. It's Friday night, all day Saturday, and then we have an additional fee master class Sunday morning. Cool. And Friday night is a big opening game. It's a contest. I don't want to say too much about it. It's a big surprise. It will kind of be scattered about throughout the evening. And then after the game, there's a bunch of jam sessions. We've got a dealer's area, which is actually just a beach and food trucks. So all the dealers have food trucks and farmers market stands. And you're just at the beach with jamming areas. There's going to be a little fire. It's very chill. And then the next day is just all day. We have some really amazing activities. So we have Rory Rennick is doing his Henry Box Brown show. So it's the history and life of Henry Box Brown, who, for those that don't know who that is, was someone who did the biggest, most epic escape of all, which is he escaped slavery twice. Wow. And then after he did that, he became a touring magician in Europe, and his life is just fascinating. So Rory is doing his show off of that. And then we have a how to find your personal funny, which is a deep dive on how to be funny just as your natural person, how to find your personality as a performer. And that is taught by the comedy legend Karen Mariyama. So it'll be fun. And then we have the show in the evening. And then Sunday morning is the additional masterclass with Eric Tate. And Eric's going to be doing a really big, intense workshop on various virtual streaming. So if you want to beef up your virtual platform, OBS, Twitch, Zoom, like using all of that, he's doing a really big workshop Sunday morning. So yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's going to be fun.
Sounds action-packed.
Action-packed.
So you said at the beginning of all of it that someone had brought to your attention that magic conventions were lacking something that other conventions had. What is that? What are those things, or what is the big one that stood out to you that now this one, I assume, has?
Diversity. That's hands down. I think most conventions have focused a lot on like, all right, so we booked that one magician who's Black 2 years ago, so we're good for a while. And you're like, and that is an email I have received. Or a lot of convention bookers, and again, not all convention bookers, many convention bookers. I personally have been told, and so have my friends, we already have a woman booked on the show. Yeah. Or we'll book you next time there's an all women's show. And so it's just kind of exhausting to constantly hear like, okay, well, we can only book one of you. Yeah. And so we flipped it on its head. And instead, we only booked one white guy. And what was great, and it's a little bit of a down low thing. We're not making a point of it. It's not a marketing tool. It's not something. We just are a very diverse, inclusive, and equitable magic convention where everyone is welcome. So every performer is welcome. If you come, you will see someone on stage that looks like you. Like it's just so valuable to include that. And when we made our list, me and one of the other co-producers, we made our list of performers we wanted to book. Our list of diverse magicians was extensive. Mm-hmm. We had a hard time choosing who we really wanted. And so we now have a list for like 5 more conventions.
Send us your list.
Oh, gladly. Super gladly.
No, serious. We now have 3 conventions worth, and we're, slowly stacking talent, and we're pretty diverse. I don't think as diverse, but we're pretty diverse, and we're always, working on it and in search of epic talented people that we don't know about. So please.
Yeah, for sure.
Unless it's a secret, and unless it's your secret people, in which case keep it a secret. Proprietary magicians.
I mean, the thing is that what I've learned is all you really need to do is like a Google search.
Yeah, open your eyes a little bit.
Yeah, you just watch Fool Us, or go on YouTube and type in magician, or Instagram and TikTok, and there are plenty of people pop up. And I think there's some weird like fear or mindset that exists in a lot of convention bookers that just say, "Oh, I don't know, are they going to be a draw? Are they going to bring in people?" And you're like, yes, because they're great. Mm-hmm. So yes. And that's really all you need. And the talent is stacked for the Online Wonder Gala. We're really proud of everyone I'm just so honored that everyone said yes, because I'm in awe of all of their ability. So for them to say yes to me is like, oh, cool. That's amazing. So I'm really, really excited. And I think it's going to be really fun. Going to your second unconventional.fun was really cool to be like, do you know what? This event doesn't really interest me. So I'm just going to hang out and jam, talk to people, go to the dealers area. And then I'm like, you know what? I think I've had enough of talking to people, which is me. That's not like a statistic that you need to be worried about, but it's just me. Like, I think I need a break. So I just logged off for an event and like grabbed some dinner and just hung out for a minute, and then came back in. And what I didn't have to do was walk through the lobby, see a ton of people that want to say hi or that I want to say hi to, talk to them, and then realize, oh my gosh, my time has now expired. And I now need to go to this event that I really wanted to see. And all I had to do was close my computer, and I didn't have to pay for a flight and a hotel. And so, I do wonder, I'm not so dedicated to the assumption that virtual shows, especially in like the corporate environment, are going to be a staple. I think they probably will exist, but I don't know. I don't have enough information to be like, yeah, I think virtual shows are here to stay for sure. I feel like virtual magic conventions are going to be pretty popular. If you started as a virtual convention, you might as well just say it's one, because why spend all the extra time and money to get a space, or why spend all the extra time and money to book a flight and a hotel room and a registration when you can just stay home?
The answer is that just like everything else, they are different. But I agree with you. And I think that we had an awesome time. People had an awesome time. We had a lot of support for it. And we tried some weird stuff. The stuff we have planned for the next one is bonkers, because we've now, the joke that we had is the first time we built a virtual world where we could build anything, and we built a hotel room. We built a hotel lobby, right? And we were like, oh, what idiots, right? Like we had boundless creativity, and we built the floor of a hotel, right? So we said, okay, lesson learned. So the next one that we did, we built Magic Land, which is a magic themed amusement park. And after that, basically what we're doing is we've tripled down on Magic Land, and we're adding, and just like kind of you said, this is something that couldn't exist in the real world. So we're adding magic themed amusement park that, like you and I were talking about, a magic podcast that would never exist. No magician would ever pay to have an amusement park with giant playing cards, on the walls. And nobody would ever pay for that, because nobody would ever go to it. But it's virtual, so it's much less expensive, and we'll build it, and we can make all every single one of your dreams come true, you know? So
That's awesome.
there's a lot of awesome benefits. And last time we had a scavenger hunt, and we're going even crazier with the scavenger hunt. And it's really, really epic. So I love virtual conventions. Like I said before, I think it's the magic convention of the future. I don't think it'll replace live conventions, but I think, oh boy, does this offer some things that live conventions don't.
When you can add, because going to a bunch of virtual conventions before I went to yours and being like, do you know, and it's funny because I think we probably had a very similar idea around the same time as we went, you know what? It'd be nice if there were jam sessions. It'd be nice if you had that camaraderie and that socialization that a live magic convention does. And that's when I went, oh, if I ever do a convention, I need to make sure there are jam sessions. And then I went to yours and was like, that was what was missing from all the virtual conventions that tried to make it over Zoom and did a great job. But there was so much lacking. And I think they did a good job with what they had early on. But speaking specifically of yours, because ours hasn't happened yet, so I'm sure I'll go, oh, this was such a disaster. But for your convention, it's like, I just as a really fun story is, so I watched the virtual magic panel and Spidey was on the panel and he said something. And I put in the chat, like, thank you for finally saying this out loud and not being me saying it. Like I'm so glad that someone said this. And then he immediately responded to me and we started going back and forth in a private chat. And then he went, meet me in the jam room. So then we met each other in the jam room and we just chatted for like 2 hours amongst other people. And now Spidey and I talk every like 3 or 4 days. And that's what was like, you accomplished the thing that was missing from virtual magic conventions easily with the fact that I made a friend.
Yeah.
And
totally.
It was so awesome. It was so much fun.
Well, first of all, Spidey's epic. So glad that you two got extra connected. And yeah, glad that you were a part of it. It was so much fun. It was great to see you there. And, one of the things I did that was really funny was, because it's complicated text sometimes on the second day, I looked at everybody who had logged in and I went to see all the people who hadn't logged in and I got a note that you hadn't logged in. So I messaged like, hey, did you get in okay? Did you get in the world okay? So I remember it was very funny because I sent maybe like 60 or 70 of those messages and it was just very nice, just like a real convention, to see all the people that were there, all the people that I knew that I got a chance to go find. And one of the cool things about the platform that we were on is that on the left-hand panel, there's a search feature. So you can literally type in someone's name and go find them. So if I wanted to see if someone was in the world, I could go find them and jam and hang out. So it was a ton of fun. I'm glad you made a friend.
That's great.
It makes me feel really pumped. This has been an awesome conversation. Before we kind of move forward, when is your convention happening? When is the Online Wonder Gala taking place?
So the Online Wonder Gala is going to be April 30th to May 1st with the additional masterclass on May 2nd, Sunday morning. When's the next unconventional.fun convention?
The next unconventional.fun is May 29th and 30th. 2 full days. We did a day and a half before, but now we're doing 2 crazy full days. And right now, if you're listening to this, if you're like, I'm sold on virtual magic conventions and I've never heard of them, on the unconventional.fun website, which is the name of the website and the name of the convention. If you go to the website right now, unconventional.fun, there is the Magic Land Pass, where you can get the pass to be a part of the next 3 conventions that we're running this year, if that's for you. And what's the website? What's the URL for people to go and get their ticket to the Online Wonder Gala?
So you can head to Shezam Pod, that's SHEZAMPOD.com/OWG for Online Wonder Gala.
Boom. I love it. This is super fun. There's so many cool things. We got to talk about magic podcasting, which there's not a lot of people in the world that are doing. We got to talk about virtual magic conventions on weird platforms with not a lot of people in the world are doing. So this was a unique conversation. Anything else that you want to use this opportunity to talk about, share with the world, or anything else like that?
Just if you are interested in following anything that we've talked about. So I'm at Magic and Heels on all platforms, like your shoes, heels like your shoes, and Shezam Pod. Again, that's with an E, not A, like the superhero. And how about you? Where can the Shezam listeners find out more about everything you're doing?
Yes, so I know I mentioned unlimited projects. It's because I don't sleep, but I'll tell you where to find about all of them. If you're interested in the podcast episodes every Thursday for the past like 6 years. So discourseinmagic.com and at discourseinmagic on every platform. If you're like, Jonah, I want to grow my virtual magic business and I loved all the stuff you were talking about earlier, find me on any social media and just send me the word upgrade. And that way I'll know that you came from here, and then I will tell you all the info so you know all about it. And then if you want to know about the convention or any other stuff that I'm up to, the convention is at unconventional.fun everywhere. And the Toronto Magic Company with the ticketed shows and any other weird stuff that we're up to is at Toronto Magic Company everywhere. So I know I'm up to a lot of stuff. But that's where you find me. This was epic. This was super, super wonderful. I loved it. Last thing, because I know this is kind of one of the wrap-up questions that I usually do, but we did an episode. It was, I don't know what episode number. It was back when I used to number my episodes. Yeah, it was a long time ago. But at the end of every episode, we talk about kind of one thing in the world of modern magic we like and one thing in the world of modern magic that we don't like. And I guess because the last one was so long ago, modern magic has changed. So I'd love to know, what is one thing in the world of magic right now that you like, and one thing in the world of magic right now that you do not like?
One thing in the world of magic that I don't like is just, and I'm this might have been the same thing that I said in the episode we did a long time ago, is just the intense inauthenticity that magicians tend to perform with. I think it's very easy that we can let the magic speak for itself and on our behalf, as opposed to actually developing our persona or character if we choose to perform as someone that's other than ourselves. And I think that is still a big part of magic that's lacking. I wish more performers would focus on that as opposed to focusing on the cool new move this week. And I think that would make magic significantly more entertaining and memorable, and not just like a cool thing people see sometimes. And I think that would be something very, very beneficial to everyone and make us different and unique and also more sellable, right? Business. And one thing that I think is really cool about the world of modern magic, I think it was really amazing, the fast pivot when the pandemic hit, the fast pivot into the virtual world, and the amount of magicians that were willing to help each other. There were a few magicians that were like, I'm going to put out my course and sell it to you for a crap ton of money. But there were other magicians that were like, okay, for a small fee or for free, I would love to just help tell you this thing I learned, walk you through how to start this, whatever it happens to be. And, there's an entire Facebook page called Zoom Magic and Mentalism where people are just just asking questions or sharing knowledge. And I know that magic has always been like that, but it really got a good spotlight when the pandemic hit, and people were like, yeah, let's help each other out because magic needs to survive this and we need to survive this. And so instead of getting a job that we hate, let's try to figure out how to make a living right now. And so that was really impressive. And it was a really nice reminder that sometimes I feel like magicians don't care about community in a lot of ways. And sometimes it's frustrating, especially with all the information that I focus on with the podcast, that I can get really frustrated with the magic community. But that was a really nice remember of like, oh yeah, a lot of magicians do care about each other. And I thought that was really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I love what you said there. Virtual's been amazing, watching everybody come together and help each other. It's been awesome.
As is Shezam tradition, before we get to talking about our bonus content, which is available for anyone that's on the Patreon, we always ask lightning round questions. But since this is a crossover episode, I thought I would just ask you 3 very silly questions that are just how we end every episode. You can answer them as short as you want, or if you could also be Max Maven and answer 2 hours per question.
I'm in. Let's go.
Nailed it. Okay. First question. What's your favorite current magic resource?
My favorite current magic resource is the Jerks books.
Oh, great. Our audio producer, Chris Combs, will really love that answer. That's an inside joke only for Chris Combs because he's going to listen to this. Okay, great. So the Jerks books. Nice. Even the new one. The new one's great.
The new one is my first or second favorite of his however many 4 or whatever.
Brilliant. That's awesome.
Yeah,
if you could recommend everyone to check out one woman who is currently performing magic, or even a woman in magic history, who would you recommend everyone check out?
I would recommend that everybody checks out I mean, I know that you guys are really connected with Felice, and Felice has done a ton of amazing stuff, and we've watched her just absolutely crush it. But the girl who is blowing my mind, especially with what she did at the first Unconventional, is Abby
Siegel.
Yes, Abby Siegel is so freaking creative and so sharp and so talented. I'm so pumped for that girl. I am so pumped for that girl. Her Penn and Teller was great, but I honestly, when I heard she was on Penn and Teller, I wish that she was going to do what she did on our first Unconventional, because she did a trick with like coins and frying pans and pancakes. And I was just like, this is the most creative, magical, this is impossible. This is unbelievable. She's unbelievable. So her and Felice are two of my favorite women in Magic right now.
That's great. That's awesome. They're both amazing, but I agree. Abby is like this amazing Magic creator, and I want her to sell everything so I can do it, but also
I know, but you know what? It was funny because, you know, Felice is a good friend of mine. I've known her for a few years, and I've seen her perform. I've seen, like, she came to Toronto to perform. So we've known each other very well for a long time. Abby, Ben was like, oh, I found Abby. She's going to be on our convention. I was like, well, I've never heard of her. And then I was like, oh my goodness. And then since then I've been like, crazy fan for the last like 6 or 8 months. So
that's awesome. She's so good.
Love that.
And the last question, if you could only eat dessert, well, I know that this might be a tough question well, we both have wonky dietary restrictions, but if you could only eat one dessert for the rest of your life, what would it be?
One dessert for the rest of my life. Weirdly enough, I'm not a big dessert person, but I really do love white chocolate. So it would probably be something a la white chocolate. Cause I'm a really big fan of like white chocolate or cookies and cream. Those are some flavors that I like.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love it. Those are good lightning round questions. I don't have any lightning round questions, but this was amazing. So thank you, Kayla, so much. This was such a wonderful crossover episode. I feel like in the old Disney shows, when the characters from one show would end up on the other show and everyone was like, I know them. That's what this is like. So this was wonderful. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to everybody for listening and for being a part of the whole fun. And we will see you all next Thursday.
Yes. And from Shezam, bye.
Well, there you have it. I hope you liked the episode, and I hope, of course, that you learned something. Number one, if you haven't checked out the Online Wonder Gala, go check that out. Number two, if you haven't checked out Shezam, go check that out. And number three, while we're talking about online virtual magic conventions, if you don't know about unconventional.fun, if you're listening to this right now, the pass is still available, which means you can get tickets to 3 conventions for one price. So if you're interested, go to the website unconventional.fun. The website is the name of the convention. Other than that, thanks for being here. I'll see you next Thursday. And I'm about to sneeze. You'll hear it live.
Bless you.
I didn't sneeze. Well, anyways, see you next Thursday. Peace.